The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
Violent crimes against children arrests alone are up 10%. Gang arrests are up 210% in the last 7 months alone.
Cracking open Operation Summer Heat, the president's crime cleanup agenda broken down by the numbers.
We think the court needs to clarify its own rulings and make some sense of them. And what we heard today is that that's really hard, even for them.
The Supreme Court takes up Louisiana's congressional maps again. The ramifications any outcome by the justices could have on redrawing maps across the nation. Plus, ceasefire violations, why the IDF is accusing Hamas of breaching the agreement just days after the peace plan has been reached. Good evening. I'm Taylor Murray. Welcome to the National News Desk, America's News Now. Well, the shutdown stalemate continues on Capitol Hill as Democrats again voted down the same continuing resolution to reopen the government for a ninth time. Meanwhile, this afternoon, President Donald Trump and the Office of Management and Budget were rebuked by a San Francisco district judge who ruled that federal firings have to stop during the shutdown. Judge Susan Ilston says she believes the layoffs that began on Friday are likely illegal and exceed the president's authority. President Trump has promised more layoffs if the shutdown continues. But while no budget agreement has been made, military members and families did receive their paychecks.
Today, if it weren't for the bold leadership of President Trump helping us to protect our military, everyone needs to understand that 1.3 million active duty service members would be missing a paycheck. They'll get their check, thankfully, because President Trump has shown strong leadership. And under his direction, the Department of War has now redirected unspent funds to ensure that our troops are taken care of. And this is while Democrats are playing political games.
The government-run WIC program is also being funded, at least for now. The program that provides food assistance and services to nearly 7 million pregnant women, new mothers, and young children has been given a $300 million lifeline. The Trump administration announced last week that it would shift tariff revenue to the program. The program could run out of money if the shutdown continues into next month. Arizona Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grivala is continuing her pressure campaign to push Speaker Mike Johnson to swear her in. House Democrats held a press conference outside of the Capitol a day after marching to the Speaker's office demanding Grivala, who won a special election 3 weeks ago, should be seated immediately. The Congresswoman-elect believes the delay is intentional.
Let's be clear. Speaker Johnson knows that I will be the 218th signature on the discharge petition for the Epstein files. He is doing everything in his power to shield this administration from accountability. That is not leadership. That is obstruction.
Speaker Johnson has said repeatedly the delay is only because the House is out of session due to the shutdown. He says she deserves a special moment and she'll be sworn in when the House reconvenes after the House-passed continuing resolution to reopen the government passes the Senate. Well, President Trump instructing his Department of Justice to start looking at sending federal law enforcement officials to San Francisco. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar joins us live with more on this. Hey, Atra.
Hey, good evening. President Trump says he is ready to expand the deployment of federal forces to more cities with Democratic mayors, now eyeing San Francisco. And the announcement came during a press conference just a couple hours ago, touting FBI statistics that were released last week, detailing more than 8,600 arrests during what was called Operation Summer Heat, a national crime crackdown.
I'm going to be strongly recommending, at the request of government officials, which is always nice, that you start looking at San Francisco. I think we can make San Francisco, there's one of our great cities 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and now it's a mess.
There was a significant spike in crime in San Francisco during the pandemic, but according to the San Francisco Police Department, violent crimes like homicide, rape, and assault have all declined by double-digit percentages compared to this time last year. Mayor Daniel Lurie put out this message on police recruitment just an hour before the president instructed his DOJ to look at going into San Francisco.
Update on our Rebuilding the Ranks initiative to increase the number of SFPD officers. It's working. We've had 4 consecutive fully staffed recruitment classes, and a 5th starts in December.
The president also threatening to move World Cup games out of cities like Boston or Los Angeles if he thinks crime is too high.
If we think there's any reason that, whether it's Boston or anywhere else, that they're not doing their job, we're going to take that those World Cup games and move them someplace else.
Now, just before that press conference, we actually learned that a federal judge extended 2 orders that block the deployment of National Guard troops in Oregon and California by another 2 weeks. And of course, San Francisco's in California. The administration, though, is challenging this.
Ari Atra, and what more can you tell us about that press conference?
Well, the president, touched on a range of topics, as is typical with a Trump press conference. And one of them had to do with his pressure that he's trying to ramp up on countries like India that buy a lot of Russian oil, which generates the revenue for what's really been called Russia's war machine on Ukraine, how it manages to really survive all of these sanctions and embargoes, etc. So President Trump is now claiming that Indian President Narendra Modi personally assured him that India will no longer buy oil from Russia. Now, Trump said it won't take place immediately, but in a short period of time. Caveat, we've not got confirmation from Indian officials yet, and in the past, claims the president's made about trade conversations with world leaders haven't always panned out when the other side gives the story, so confirmation is vital here. But if this is true, and if India does cut off Russian oil imports, it would reflect not only a massive shift in India's economy, but Russia's, right? India is Russia's second biggest purchaser of oil, so it would be a devastating blow to Russian revenue and how it funds its invasion of Ukraine.
All right, Atra. Elena Shar in Washington, D.C., thank you. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says China is betraying the world with a global supply chain power grab. China enacted a new rule last week that seeks to force foreign companies to gain China's approval to export even trace amounts of rare earth minerals. China processes just about 9/10 of the world's rare earth minerals and magnets. Now, Secretary Bessent says this action is highly provocative.
China is a command and control economy, and we and our allies will neither be commanded nor controlled. They are a state economy, and we are not going to let a group of bureaucrats in Beijing try to manage the global supply chains.
The secretary says there are substantial actions the U.S. can take to counter China, but, quote, we'd rather not. He also confirms that at this time, President Trump is still expected to meet in person with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Korea later this month. Now to the nation's highest court, where the Voting Rights Act is taking the stand. Today, the Supreme Court's conservative majority signals it could reconsider a key portion of the Voting Rights Act designed to prevent racial discrimination in redistricting. The justices heard oral arguments in a case centered on Louisiana's congressional map. The court's ruling could pave the way for other Republican state legislators to redraw their maps to pick up more red seats. Conservative justices say race-based districting puts the nation on a dangerous course and needs a time limit. Liberal justices argue it protects minorities.
This court's cases in a variety of contexts have said that race-based remedies are permissible for a period of time, sometimes for a long period of time, decades in some cases, but that they should not be indefinite and should have an endpoint.
Race is always a part of these decisions, and my colleagues are trying to tease it out in this intellectual way that doesn't deal with the fact that race is used to help people.
We dug a little deeper into this case to give you some background. The complex Louisiana versus Calais congressional map dispute started a few years back, and it involves several different lawsuits and court decisions. In 2022, the state of Louisiana's Republican-led legislature drew a congressional map that only had one black majority district. A group of black voters sued successfully, claiming discrimination, and the legislature was ordered to redraw the map, adding another majority black district in 2024. Then, a group of self-described non-black voters sued over that map, arguing it was discriminatory against them. So now it's up to the Supreme Court to decide whether Louisiana's map with those two majority black districts remain in place, or will the Supreme Court declare that the 2024 map is racial discrimination and decide in favor of the so-called non-black voters? A ruling is expected by the end of June. More rain and high winds are expected to impact the Alaskan coast today as roughly 1,500 people remain displaced in Alaska following Typhoon Halong. Remnants of the weekend storm destroyed 2 villages. At least 1 person is confirmed dead. 2 are still missing. The National Guard Armory is serving as a shelter for dozens. Well, a police officer and cadet were shot this morning outside a hotel in San Antonio. 3 officers happened to be at the scene of a disturbance call at that location when the call was disconnected. The San Antonio police chief said the other officers were taunted by a man who yelled at them, quote, "I'm not going back to jail." And then there was an exchange of gunfire. 2 officers were hit.
We were very, very lucky. As this officer was, as the suspect was pulling out that gun shooting, and one of the officers jumped on him.
Both officers shot in their arms are expected to recover. The suspect, whose name has not been released, was killed in the crossfire and pronounced dead at the scene. Now, according to the Fraternal Order of Police, as of October 1st, Texas police officers have been shot in the line of duty more than any other state. 33 officers, not including today's shooting, have been shot. And the next highest is Georgia with 17, followed by Virginia 16, and then 15 in Pennsylvania. Across the country, as of the first of the month, 251 officers have been shot in the line of duty. 35 have died. 72 of these officers were targeted across 52 ambush-style attacks. And the Fraternal Order says this number doesn't even include officers who were shot at but not struck by gunfire. In other news now, the Trump administration has authorized the CIA to conduct covert actions in Venezuela, according to the New York Times, who cited officials familiar with the classified directive. The new authority reportedly would allow the CIA to carry out lethal operations in Venezuela and conduct a range of operations in the Caribbean. The alleged move follows weeks of U.S. military strikes on boats off of Venezuela's coast, believed to be smuggling drugs. This afternoon, President Trump spoke about whether he'd authorize strikes inside Venezuela to curb drug trafficking into the U.S.
Are you considering strikes on land?
Well, I don't want to tell you exactly, but we are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control. And the way you look at it is every boat that we knock out, we save 25,000 American lives.
Tuesday, President Trump said the U.S. military carried out another strike on a boat carrying suspected drug traffickers off the coast of Venezuela. 6 people died in that strike. Meanwhile, the U.S. Coast Guard says it has seized over 50 tons of cocaine in the eastern Pacific Ocean since launching Operation Pacific Viper in early August, averaging nearly a ton daily. In total, 86 people suspected of narco-terrorism and trafficking have been arrested, and as a result of 34 interdictions, according to Coast Guard officials. Coming up, how the Secretary of War is doing after an in-flight emergency and what he said today about the war in Ukraine. Then AI and the workforce, how some experts believe it will revolutionize millions of jobs. Plus, what is a tropical virus doing in the Northeast, where a case of the non-domestic virus has been confirmed in the United States for the first time in at least 6 years. Israel is raising more concerns about the fragile truce with Hamas, particularly over the remains of hostages Hamas is handing over. The IDF says the DNA of one of the 4 bodies handed over last night does not match that of any hostage who was held in Gaza. There's no immediate word on whose body it is. Israel is also accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire deal over how long it's taking to return these remains, though officials warn it's a tall task, and Hamas might not be able to find every body.
As you know, and we told the American side that as for the remains of the bodies, collecting the remains will take some time because they are under rubbles, and you have a lot of explosive materials, devices under the rubble. So reaching them will be a bit difficult.
The Red Cross transferred 2 more bodies said to be deceased hostages to the IDF this evening in Gaza. And the AP reports that Hamas has assured U.S. advisors that they will honor the deal to return all of the dead to Israel. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says he is all good after his plane made an emergency landing in the United Kingdom. According to a Pentagon spokesperson, the Air Force C-32 aircraft carrying Hegseth declared an in-flight emergency while over the Atlantic Ocean. This was due to a crack in the windshield. Hegseth and the rest of the plane's passengers were unharmed. And Hegseth was en route home to the U.S. from a NATO defense ministers meeting in Brussels. There, he signaled the Trump administration is focused again on resolving the war in Ukraine now that the Gaza ceasefire is holding in the Middle East. Hegseth is promising more firepower coming to help Ukraine by way of NATO allies. Making these statements today alongside NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, urging European nations to purchase U.S. weapons and transfer them to NATO for the fight in Ukraine.
And I believe that's what NATO is doing. I believe that's what the Pearl Initiative is. So our expectation today is that more countries donate even more, that they purchase even more to provide for Ukraine to bring that conflict to a peaceful conclusion.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is heading to Washington on Friday in hopes of securing more air defenses. President Trump recently said he is considering providing Kyiv with Tomahawk missiles to strike deeper into Russia. AI is changing the job markets, and Washington is scrambling to keep up. Now, Democrats are warning of massive job loss. The National Desk, Angela Brown, is looking into those numbers.
A quick check of the headlines tells the story. Axios, 100 million jobs could be eliminated by AI. The biggest targets, fast food workers, accountants, and trucking positions. CBS News found that entry-level corporate jobs for new grads have dropped 15% since AI hit the scene. John Bowerman, self-taught developer and co-founder of Stealth Consulting.
So if you're learning coding at college, don't just think about how am I going to apply code, but really understand what is the theory behind how this code works. Because that is much, if you understand the theory, then you can use whatever tools are available to be able to apply it in the future.
But leading in AI isn't just an economic issue, it's a global race. A new plan released by the White House identifies more than 90 federal policy actions to expand AI development and governance.
We need one common sense federal standard that supersedes all states, supersedes everybody, so you don't end up in litigation.
On Capitol Hill, Senator Bernie Sanders released his own analysis, warning AI and automation could destroy nearly 100 million U.S. jobs in a decade. But not everyone sees AI as a threat. Some argue the real danger is falling behind.
The tech race with China is really, really important. They're ahead of us in a few categories. I would say robotics is one. We're fortunate that we are ahead of China right now in terms of AI software.
In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
A recall alert to tell you about Ben's Original is pulling some rice products from store shelves nationwide because they could contain small stones. Federal health officials say the recalled products pose a risk of oral or digestive tract injury if consumed. So the recalled products include Ben's Original Ready Rice Long Grain White Rice, Ready Rice Whole Grain Brown Rice, and also Ready Rice Long Grain and Wild Rice, all with Best Buy dates of August 2026. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We start in Maryland, where a former FBI agent has been sentenced to 60 years in prison after being convicted of rape.
4 years ago, then FBI agent Eduardo Valdivia was caught on camera pulling his gun and shooting a panhandler on a metro train. He was charged with attempted murder, but his lawyer successfully argued self-defense, and Valdivia was acquitted. Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy says he then used his freedom to commit rape.
This is one of the most dastardly, evil, schemed crimes I've seen in 40 years.
While working as an FBI agent before and after the Metro shooting, Valdivia was also secretly moonlighting as a tattoo artist and boudoir photographer under the aliases Lalo Brown and El Boogie. He was offering free tattoos and phony modeling contracts to girls lured to his after-hours studio and hotel rooms.
He just used his skills that he had honed over nearly 15 years with the FBI to allow him to manipulate for the purposes of sex these three young victims.
3 victims came forward, one just a high school senior at the time of the crime. And after a 2-week trial, Valdivia was convicted in July.
It's a 2-lane road up through Provo Canyon, and then it becomes a 1-lane road when you get up near the top of Deer Creek right there. Our goal for this project is to make it 2 lanes both directions.
To do that, UDOT is actually carving 2 new lanes into the mountainside. Do you have to blast the hill?
Yes, there'll be some blasting probably, but there's going to be a lot of digging, a lot of excavating of the wall as we make our cuts into the hillside there.
According to UDOT, this scenic drive between the Rainbow Bay Day Use area and the junction with State Route 113 on US 189 in Provo Canyon carries thousands of commuters.
This is really the only route through here, unless you go all the way around to Parley's or all the way down somewhere else.
Why is this needed there?
It's been needed for a long time. We have a lot of traffic that goes on that route. It's a very highly commuted route, and to make things a lot safer too, to avoid crashes, head-on collisions, all that kind of thing, it's good to have separated lanes.
I think if it makes it safer for everyone, that's a good thing.
Coming up, bacterial infections are surging around the world. A warning from health experts about superbugs that are often drug resistant. New York health officials confirmed the first locally acquired case of the mosquito-borne illness chikungunya virus, which can cause fever and joint pain. The virus was identified in a person living on Long Island. The person started experiencing symptoms in August after a trip outside the region, but not internationally. Chikungunya is usually found in subtropical and tropical regions. And according to the CDC, locally acquired cases have not been reported in the U.S. since 2019. Also from the CDC, a new warning this week about an alarming rise in cases of drug-resistant infections from so-called superbugs. Medical reporter Liz Bonis shares what's behind the trend.
Hey there, everybody. This warning coming from infectious disease specialists. They are seeing a dramatic and dangerous increase in infections caused by some pretty bad bugs right now. The big problem is that these bugs don't respond to traditional treatment. What that means is that these bacteria and the infections from them, the CDC calls NDM-CREs, now won't go away, even with the highest level of attack drugs designed to destroy them. Dr. Stephen Blatt told me they have evolved so much.
They carry a gene that destroys our most advanced types of antibiotics called carbapenems.
These have long been a hospital risk to patients, but are now showing up in the community.
And those people come to their outpatient doctor with, say, a urinary tract infection, and we don't have any antibiotics to treat them that come in a pill form. They have to go on IVs.
So what to know? If you have a virus, an antibiotic won't help your symptoms. If symptoms don't go away and it is a bacterial infection, lab tests can make sure you get the right targeted medication, reducing odds for resistance. This is something important, Dr. Blatt says, until there's more research on how to fight these resistant bugs.
And they looked at the increase in the number of these infections, which is a lot more than we thought it was going to be.
Nearly 35,000 people in the U.S. die from these kind of infections every year. Just one more reason new solutions are needed. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Coming up, you may need to buckle up for this one. What do you get when you combine a truck and a belt buckle? We'll show you the truckle after the break. Buckle up, cowboy. Ford is introducing the Truckle to mark the 50th anniversary of its Ford belt buckle, made of German silver and jeweler's bronze. And it's not just fashion, it's function. The back of the Truckle has a place to hold your key fob from F-150 models going all the way back to 2018. The Truckle is going to cost you around $200, though. It comes in black and it comes in brown. Yeehaw. That's all the time we have for now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Taylor Murray.